Hi, I'm Lisa. Today, I'm going to read you the story of Bella, which is titled like this: My parents demanded I throw my sister's engagement party at my house. After they betrayed me years ago, I agreed after much persuasion, but they suddenly said, "You shouldn't be at this party." So I left, but not in the way they expected. Well, let's go. My name is Bella, and I'm 34 years old. I work as a manager dealing with particularly important clients at a large international company. The job means I'm constantly traveling for business, working crazy hours, but hey, the salary is worth it. 6 months ago, I finally bought myself something I'd been dreaming about for years: a big Victorian house. This place has such a special atmosphere. My friends love coming over just to take photos and post them on social media. The high ceilings, the old wooden floors, the way the light comes through those tall windows, it's like stepping back in time. Lisa was here last week with her camera, going nuts over every corner. "Bella, this place is absolutely gorgeous," she kept saying while snapping away. "But there's something you should know about me. My parents and my younger sister have never set foot in this house. Hell, they don't even know I bought it. We haven't spoken in 16 years, and there's a damn good reason for that. When I was 18 and graduated high school, I got accepted to college on a full scholarship. I was over the moon. All that hard work had paid off. But here's the thing. I knew my parents had been saving money for college tuition. They had this fund set up for me and my sister, Emma, who's 5 years younger than me. I'd heard them talking about it plenty of times when they thought I wasn't listening. About $50,000 was meant for me in that fund. So, when I told them about my full scholarship, I expected them to give me that money. I mean, it made sense, right? I still needed to pay rent for an apartment since the college was in another state. I needed money for books, extra classes, living expenses. The scholarship covered tuition, but not everything else. I'll never forget that conversation. We were sitting in the kitchen, and I was so excited to share my news. "Mom, Dad, I got the full scholarship," I said, practically bouncing in my seat. "That's wonderful, honey," Mom said, but something in her voice made me pause. "So, about that college fund," I started. Dad looked at Mom, and they had one of those silent conversations married couples do. Then Dad cleared his throat. "Well, Bella, since you got the scholarship, we've decided to keep that money for Emma's education." I just stared at them. "What?" "You don't need it anymore," Mom said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "Emma will need it when her time comes." "But that money was for me too," I said, feeling my voice getting higher. "I still need somewhere to live. I need books." You'll figure it out," Dad interrupted. "You're smart. You got the scholarship. Emma might not be so lucky." That's when I lost it. This is so unfair. You're betraying me. That money was supposed to be mine too. The slap came out of nowhere. Mom's hand connected with my cheek so hard my ears rang. "Don't you dare call us traitors," she hissed. Dad stood up, his face red with anger. "Get out of this house right now." "Fine," I screamed back, my cheek burning. "I'll pack my things and be gone." I spent that whole evening throwing my stuff into boxes and suitcases, crying and angry as hell. Emma kept peeking into my room, but she didn't say anything. In the morning, I called a taxi and left, just like that. My friend Jessica's parents took me in. They gave me a room and didn't ask for anything in return. I worked part-time at their cafe, saving every penny I could. When it was time to leave for college, Jessica's parents handed me $3,000. "For your future," her mom said, giving me a hug. "We believe in you." Those words meant everything to me, more than my own parents had ever said. I used that money to rent an apartment with 2 other girls. I studied during the day and worked 2 part-time jobs at night. While my classmates went home for holidays, I worked double shifts. I lived on ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches, but I made it work. Emma sent me a few holiday cards the first year, but when I didn't respond, she stopped. I stopped sending her anything too. What was the point? I graduated, got hired by my current company, and worked my ass off to climb the ladder. And here I am now in my beautiful Victorian house, successful and independent. Or at least I was, having a peaceful Saturday morning until someone knocked on my door. I opened the door and nearly dropped my coffee mug. Standing on my porch were my parents and Emma. After 16 years of complete silence, there they were, looking like they'd just seen me yesterday. "Hello, Bella," Mom said cheerfully, like we were old friends meeting for lunch. I just stood there, frozen. Dad was looking around at my porch, nodding approvingly. Emma was checking out her phone, barely glancing up at me. "Well, aren't you going to invite us in?" Mom asked, already pushing past me into my house. I couldn't find my voice. They just walked in like they owned the place. Dad whistled low as he looked around my living room. "This is quite the place you've got here," he said. "Victorian, right? Must have cost you a pretty penny." Mom was already wandering around, touching my furniture, examining my decorations. "Bella, why didn't you tell us you bought a house? And why didn't you invite us to a housewarming party?" I finally found my voice. "We haven't actually spoken in 16 years. Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, that's all in the past. Water under the bridge. All in the past?" I wanted to scream. She said it like we'd had some minor disagreement about what to watch on TV. "How did you even find my address?" I managed to ask. "Your old friend Jessica," Mom said, still looking around. "We ran into her mother at the grocery store. She mentioned you'd bought this beautiful house." Of course, Jessica's mom would tell them. She probably thought she was being helpful, trying to reunite a family. "So, what's this about?" I asked. Why the sudden interest in checking on me? Emma finally looked up from her phone. She was 29 now, and I had to admit she'd grown into a pretty woman, but there was something in her expression that reminded me exactly why I'd stayed away. "Well," Mom said, settling herself on my couch like she lived here, "Emma has some exciting news." Emma smiled, and for a second, I thought maybe she was pregnant or something. Maybe they wanted to share good news and actually try to rebuild our relationship. "I'm getting engaged," Emma announced. "Jason proposed last month, and we're having an engagement party soon." "Congratulations," I said carefully. I figured they were here to invite me. Part of me was actually touched that they'd want me there after all these years. I'll probably have to miss it, though. Work is crazy right now, and no, Emma interrupted, laughing. "We're not here to invite you." I blinked. "What?" Mom leaned forward eagerly. "Emma saw photos of your house on social media. One of your friends posted some pictures, and Emma just fell in love with this place." A cold feeling started forming in my stomach. "The thing is," Emma continued, "we want to have the engagement party here, in your house." I stared at her. "Excuse me?" "It's perfect," Emma gushed. "This house has such an amazing atmosphere, and it has real history. Jason and I are doing a themed party, early 20th century style. This place would be absolutely perfect for it. You want to have your engagement party in my house?" I repeated slowly. "Yes." Mom clapped her hands together. "Isn't that wonderful? It would be such a lovely way for our family to come back together." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I'm not doing that. Absolutely not." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Mom's smile faded. "Bella, you're being too vindictive," she said, her voice taking on that sharp edge I remembered so well. "You need to let go of the past and finally make peace with your family. This party would be a perfect opportunity for reconciliation." "I don't want to reconcile with you," I said flatly. Dad, who'd been quiet this whole time, finally spoke up. "That's a shame, Bella. We raised you better than this." "You raised me better?" I laughed, but it came out harsh and bitter. "You threw me out when I was 18. You were being disrespectful," Mom snapped. "And look how well you turned out. Maybe we did you a favor." Emma stood up, smoothing down her dress. "Well, this didn't go how we hoped, but you should think about it, Bella. Family is important." They headed toward the door, and I followed them, still in shock. "You should really reconsider," Mom said as she stepped onto the porch. "Think about what's really important here." And then they were gone, leaving me standing in my doorway, shaking with anger and disbelief. The next few days were hell. My phone started ringing constantly. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't heard from in years were suddenly calling me. They all had the same message: I should let Emma have her party at my house. Family was important. I was being stubborn. "Emma deserved this special day. She's your only sister," my Aunt Carol said during one particularly long call. "And she's always looked up to you." "Really?" I said. Because she didn't seem to care much when I left home at 18. You were just kids then, Carol replied. You're adults now. Time to act like it. Every single day, someone called. The pressure was relentless. They painted me as the villain, the bitter older sister who couldn't let go of the past. They made it sound like I was ruining Emma's happiness out of pure spite. By the end of the week, I was exhausted. My peaceful home felt invaded, even when no one was there. I couldn't concentrate on work. I couldn't sleep properly. Finally, I cracked. I called Mom. I'll do it, I said when she answered. Oh, Bella, that's wonderful. I knew you'd come around. But I have conditions, I started to say, but she'd already hung up to call Emma. The very next day, Mom and Emma literally ran to my house and burst through the door like they owned the place. They were practically bouncing with excitement, talking over each other about how they'd decorate everything. We're thinking vintage lace here, Emma said, gesturing wildly at my dining room, and maybe some old-fashioned candelabras on the mantel. Oh, and flowers everywhere, Mom added. Roses and peonies, very romantic. I just nodded and tried to keep up with their rapid-fire planning. Just please don't ruin my interior, I said. Of course not, honey, Mom said, but she was already eyeing my antique side table like she wanted to move it. This went on for 2 weeks straight. Every day after work, I'd come home to find Mom and Emma there, sometimes with Emma's fiancé, Jason, sometimes with his parents too. My house was constantly full of people measuring things, moving furniture around, and making lists. Jason's parents, Linda and Bob, were nice enough, but they kept commenting on everything. This wallpaper is so authentic, Linda would say. You're so lucky to have found this place, Bella. I was getting exhausted. My peaceful home had become party planning central, and I never had a moment to myself anymore. One evening, Mom cornered me in the kitchen. Bella, honey, would you mind if I had a spare key? It would be so much easier if we could come decorate while you're at work. We won't disturb anything important. I looked at her tired face and Emma's hopeful expression. With a heavy sigh, I went to my key drawer and handed over my spare key. Please, God, let this be over soon, I prayed silently. Meanwhile, I figured if I was stuck hosting this party, I might as well look the part. I bought myself a beautiful dress in the early 20th century style, deep emerald green with delicate beading. At least I'd look good while being miserable. My house was slowly transforming into something I barely recognized. Every day, I'd come home from work to find new decorations, rearranged furniture, and the smell of fresh flowers everywhere. Vintage lace curtains had appeared in my living room, old-fashioned candelabras lined my mantelpiece, and there were roses and peonies in every corner. I have to admit, it looked beautiful, but it wasn't my home anymore. It felt like I was living in someone else's house, like I was just a guest in my own space. Mom had been using that spare key religiously. I'd get home and find evidence of their work everywhere. Fabric samples on my kitchen counter, vendor business cards scattered around, lists of things to do stuck to my refrigerator with magnets I'd never seen before. 2 days before the party, I was upstairs in my home office, trying to catch up on some work emails, when I heard Mom and Emma talking downstairs. They were looking at jewelry or something, their voices carrying up through the old house. Oh, the caterer confirmed for 45 people, Mom was saying. Perfect, Emma replied. And the photographer will be here at 7 to capture everything before the guests arrive. Good thing Bella won't be here to get in the way of the photos, Mom said with a laugh. I froze. What did she just say? I know, right? Emma giggled. It'll be so much better without her lurking around, looking miserable. My blood turned to ice. I crept to the top of the stairs to hear better. The tables will look perfect without having to worry about seating her anywhere, Mom continued. And Jason's parents were so relieved when I told them she wouldn't be attending. She did say she didn't want to come to the party anyway, Emma said, so really, we're just respecting her wishes. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I walked downstairs, my heart pounding. What did you just say about me not being here? I asked. Mom looked up from the jewelry box she was examining, completely calm. Oh, you heard that? Well, you did say at our first visit that you didn't want to attend the party, so we didn't count you when we ordered the food or arranged the seating. But this is my house, I said, my voice getting higher. The party is in my house. Of course, I'm going to be here. Emma looked up with that sweet smile I was starting to hate. Well, you don't have to be. We have the key, remember? You could go out for the evening, do something fun for yourself. You never liked big parties anyway. I stared at both of them, waiting for the punchline. Surely, they were joking. But they weren't laughing, and they weren't backing down. You're serious, I said. It would just be easier this way, Mom said. Going back to the jewelry like this was a perfectly normal conversation. The party is really for our friends and family. You'd probably feel out of place anyway, since you don't know anyone anymore. I don't know anyone because I haven't spoken to you people in 16 years, I snapped. Exactly, Emma said, like she'd just proved her point. So why make it awkward for everyone? I looked at these two women in my living room, surrounded by decorations they'd put up in my house, planning a party I was paying for and hosting, and telling me I wasn't welcome to attend. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. They hadn't changed, not one bit. They were still the same selfish, manipulative people who'd thrown me out at 18. They'd just gotten more sophisticated about it. You know what? I said, forcing a smile onto my face. You're absolutely right. Mom looked surprised. I am. Yes. I should spend the evening doing something for myself. You two clearly have everything under control here. Oh, that's wonderful. Emma clapped her hands together. I'm so glad you understand. I understand perfectly, I said, still smiling. I'm going to go upstairs and make some plans for Saturday evening. Great, Mom said. We'll just finish up down here and lock up when we leave. I nodded and headed upstairs, my mind already racing. They wanted me gone from my own house? Fine. I'd be gone, but not in the way they expected. I sat down at my computer and started researching. First, I found a beautiful lakeside hotel about 2 hours away. I booked a room for the weekend, Friday night through Sunday. Then I started making phone calls. Hello, this is Bella Rodriguez. I need a locksmith to come to my house early Saturday morning to change all the locks. Yes, it's urgent. The locksmith could be there at 8 a.m. on Saturday. Perfect. Next call. Hi, I need a cleaning company to come remove decorations from my house on Saturday morning. Everything needs to be taken down and stored in my garage. Can you be there at 9 a.m.? They could do it. This was working out perfectly. I spent the rest of the evening planning every detail. I wrote out a note to leave on my front door. I made sure I had everything I needed for my weekend getaway. I even charged my phone fully so I wouldn't miss any of the angry calls I was sure to get. For the first time in weeks, I felt like myself again. I felt powerful and in control. They wanted to use my house and kick me out? They had another thing coming. I went to bed that night with a smile on my face, knowing that Saturday was going to be a very interesting day. The party was supposed to start at 7 p.m. Mom, Emma, and Jason were planning to arrive at 4 o'clock to receive the catered food and set up the final details. They had no idea what was waiting for them. I set my alarm for 7 a.m. I had a lot to do before they showed up, and I wanted to be long gone by the time they realized what had happened. This was going to be so much better than any party. Saturday morning came, and I was up at 7 a.m. sharp. I felt more energized than I had in weeks. Today was the day everything would change. The locksmith arrived exactly at 8 o'clock, just as promised. He was a friendly older guy named Pete who didn't ask too many questions about why I needed all my locks changed on such short notice. Had some trouble with unwanted visitors, he asked while working on my front door. Something like that, I said, watching him install the new deadbolt. How long will this take? About an hour for all the doors, Pete said. You'll have shiny new keys and complete peace of mind. At 9 a.m., the cleaning company showed up. I'd hired a team of 4 people, and they worked like a well-oiled machine. They carefully removed every single decoration Emma and Mom had put up, the vintage lace curtains, the candelabras, the flower arrangements, all of it. Where do you want everything stored? The team leader asked. In the garage, I said. Stack it all neatly. They'll want to pick it up later. By 10:30, my house looked exactly like it had before this whole nightmare started. My furniture was back in its original places, my walls were bare of their decorations, and the smell of roses was finally gone from my living room. I wrote out a note on my best stationery. The party has been canceled. All decorations are stored in the garage. The key is under the flower pot by the garage door. The locks have been changed. Do not attempt to enter the house. I taped it securely to my front door, grabbed my weekend bag, and drove off to my lakeside hotel. The drive was beautiful, and for the first time in weeks, I felt completely relaxed. I checked into my room, which had a perfect view of the lake. I ordered room service, took a long hot bath, and settled in to wait for the fireworks to begin. At exactly 4 p.m., my phone started ringing. Mom's name flashed on the screen. I smiled and let it go to voicemail. Then Emma called, then Dad, then Jason. I ignored them all. The text messages started pouring in around 4:15. Bella, why can't we get into your house? Mom, what's going on? The key doesn't work. Emma, call us back right now. Dad. I poured myself a glass of wine from the hotel's minibar and watched the sunset over the lake. My phone kept buzzing with increasingly frantic messages. At 4:30, Mom called again. This time I answered. What the hell did you do? She screamed before I could even say hello. Good evening, Mom, I said calmly. How's your day going? Don't play games with me. We can't get into your house. The restaurant already delivered the food. Oh, that's terrible, I said, not feeling terrible at all. Did you find my note? Yes, we found your stupid note. You've completely screwed us over. How could you do this to your own sister? I took a sip of wine and looked out at the peaceful lake. I did exactly what you wanted me to do. You said I shouldn't be at the party, so I'm not. You said you had the key and I could spend the evening doing something for myself, so I am. That's not what we meant, and you know it. Actually, it's exactly what you meant. You decided I should disappear from my own house so you could have your perfect party without me. Well, congratulations, I've disappeared. I could hear Emma sobbing in the background and people talking loudly. It sounded like chaos. You're a terrible person, Mom screamed. You've ruined everything. I didn't ruin anything, I said. I just gave you exactly what you asked for. You wanted to use my house without me there? Well, you can't have one without the other. You were going to treat me like I don't exist. Now I actually don't exist as far as you're concerned. We'll set up the tables on your lawn, Emma shouted into the phone. We'll have the party outside. I laughed. If you don't leave my property immediately, I'll call the police and have you all arrested for trespassing. The line went quiet for a moment. Then Mom's voice came back, cold and furious. You'll regret this, Bella. Mark my words. The only thing I regret is waiting so long to do it, I said and hung up. An hour later, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. She was a sweet, elderly lady who loved neighborhood gossip. Oh, Bella, she said when she heard my voice, I saw the most interesting thing at your house today. Really? What happened? Well, around 4:30, all these people in fancy clothes started showing up. Your mother and sister were standing on your porch, pointing at your house and talking to everyone. They looked very upset. Then a big truck came and loaded up a bunch of stuff from your garage. Everyone left, looking pretty disappointed. I couldn't help but laugh. Thanks for letting me know, Mrs. Patterson. I spent the rest of the weekend in complete peace. I read a book, took long walks by the lake, and slept better than I had in months. For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I could breathe again. Sunday evening, I drove home. My lawn was a bit trampled from all the people who'd been there, and someone had spray-painted "bastard" in big red letters on my garage doors. I just shrugged and went inside my house. It felt like home again. A week later, my cousin David called me. Hey, Bella, he said, sounding uncomfortable. I wanted to let you know that your mom has been telling everyone that the family is officially done with you. She says you won't be invited to Emma's wedding. I started laughing. I laughed so hard I had to sit down. Are you okay? David asked. I'm perfect, I said, wiping tears from my eyes. Thank God for small favors. If they'd actually gone through with the engagement party, they probably would have wanted to hold the wedding here too. Oh, David said. I hadn't thought of that. Trust me, this is the best possible outcome. And it really was. I live quietly now, with no contact from my family. I don't know what's happening with Emma's wedding, and I honestly don't care. My house is peaceful again. My friends still come over for photo shoots, and I don't have to deal with people who think they can use me and then discard me when it's convenient. Sometimes, the trash takes itself out. In this case, I just gave it a little push.